The online primitive building channels were a booming success, with hundreds of millions of views per video. But one man, SunnyV2, set out to expose their secrets, and the industry would never be the same again. The primitive building channels of the early 2020s promised to show viewers how to build structures using only primitive tools and materials. But the reality was much different. In fact, these videos were not what they seemed. The creators used modern tools and materials, and the structures often needed to be built to last. Behind the scenes, a very different story was unfolding. He revealed that the videos were not actually made with primitive methods, but were instead made using modern techniques and materials. This completely contradicted the narrative of the videos, which claimed to be made using primitive techniques. He debunked many of the claims they were making. His evidence was far too compelling, and the video went viral and caused a sensation. Let's start with an introduction of who was behind all this. SunnyV2 was a popular YouTuber who gained a large following by exposing the secrets of primitive building channels. He took an investigative approach, uncovering the truth behind the videos flooding the internet. Here's how it all started. In his investigation, one name had a pretty legit channel: Primitive Technology. It was a 10.4 million subscriber YouTube channel, run by an Australian man, John Plant, who invented the primitive building construction genre. His first video was a huge success when he built a shelter in the woods with nothing but a few primitive tools. It was imposing, and it had millions of views. His videos served as a baseline for what should be achievable in building by hand. When others saw how much engagement he was getting on his videos about primitive buildings, they joined in and made their videos. Some are far-fetched from reality. They were concerned with the engagement, not the authenticity of what they were doing. After separating the real from what he termed the fakers, SunnyV2 exposed the truth about these massive primitive building channels. In the months leading up to the release of SunnyV2's video, the primitive building channels were booming. They were getting millions of views and raking in tons of ad revenue. But all of that changed with the release of SunnyV2's exposure. His video showed how these channels used modern tools and techniques to create their videos, and how they misled their viewers. As soon as people saw the truth, they started to unsubscribe from these channels. It was like a house of cards had come crashing down. Sunny began his investigation by studying the primitive building channels closely. He noticed that many structures they built were too complex to have been made with primitive tools. He also noticed that they never showed their entire process, and that their videos were heavily edited. He analyzed their techniques and materials, and found that they used modern tools and materials in their builds. This was a direct contradiction to their claims of using only primitive methods. Armed with an alarming amount of evidence against these channels, he went on the attack and made a video exposing them for their deceit. He started by showing that most primitive channel videos were not based in the US, but set up their geolocation to the US for higher YouTube ad revenue. He then proved that the number of men claimed to have been working on the primitive building channels was false. He started by making an in-depth analysis of the videos on the channel and could see that things needed to be added up. Some men were working on the construction in some channels, and some machinery was in the background with their tracks all over the construction site. The fakers were not as good as they thought. Drone footage from another channel capturing one of the primitive building channels further shed light on this dark and murky affair. He broke down each clip, pointing out the inconsistencies and the use of modern tools and materials. He also provided expert testimony from professionals in the field. By the end of the video, it was clear that the primitive building channels were not what they claimed to be. He also explains how these primitive channels often stage their videos and use editing techniques to make the builds look more impressive than they are. The expert opinion he got on the matter of the building construction and their inconsistencies were alarming, as some of the creators in the phony channels claimed to have made cement from just sand and water. While some put in more effort and claimed to have made cement from a termite nest, some skipped the process and claimed they got something called natural cement from a small stream. The creators took us for babies who don't know that a mixture of sand and water equals mud. However, according to the primitive building channels, cement could hold a building upright. The expert opinion of a civil engineer debunked this outrightly, as it was a ridiculous notion. Not stopping there, he made a post earlier in the hope that someone who worked on some of the primitive channels could share their experience on what was happening. He received a lot of emails, but one in particular stood out. It was from a cameraman who worked for one of the large Southeast primitive building channels. This turned out to be the breaking point. He revealed that it was a more extensive operation than what was portrayed, as they had a large team of no less than a dozen persons working on the construction with a hired architect to make sure nothing went wrong and the building could last long enough to be filmed in. They were also directors for the acting part and editors to make it look natural. These channels deceived their viewers. The channel's creators would use jump cuts to make it seem like they were completing tasks much faster than they were. For example, they might show themselves starting a project and then use a jump cut to show the project completed without showing the time it took in between. This can be very misleading for viewers. They also used tactics like modern tools and techniques without mentioning them. It turned out that the creators were also dishonest about the digging process, as the marks seen in the holes being dug were inconsistent with the tools being used. Excavator tracks could be seen around the site of some construction videos. According to one of the camera operators, most of the construction is done by a team of hired professionals with machinery. Some creators even went so far as to claim that they could start a fire without any modern tools, such as a lighter or matches. They claimed they could do it simply by smashing rocks together and dropping them on a wood log without a kindle or anything else. However, this is not possible in the real world. The claims made by these creators were so unrealistic and far-fetched that they were almost insulting to the intelligence of their viewers. They were willing to say anything to get more views. It seems that some creators in the primitive building genre were more focused on creating content that looks impressive rather than being genuinely authentic. They may take shortcuts and use modern supplies while still claiming to be building and living off the land with only primitive methods. This can mislead viewers into thinking they could survive in the wilderness using only the methods shown in the videos. But these videos do not represent what it would be like to live off the land with primitive methods. With the truth revealed, the primitive building channels began to lose popularity. Their videos no longer got the same views, and the once thriving industry began to crumble. After the video's release, many people began to question the authenticity of the channels. Some viewers unsubscribed from the channels, while others commented on the videos to express their disappointment. The viewership numbers for the primitive building channels began to drop, and their popularity declined rapidly. Some channels shut down, while others changed their content to avoid further scrutiny. The fallout from SunnyV2's video was immense. Many channels he exposed were forced to change their content or risk losing their audience entirely. Some tried to defend themselves, but their excuses were brushed aside. Others faded into obscurity, their once loyal fans having lost faith in them. It was a dramatic shift in the YouTube landscape. Suddenly, authenticity and transparency were more critical than ever before. And it all started with one video. How primitive building videos are staged.